Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl, Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets, where we give you the strategies, the mindsets, and the frameworks to you building your own 6 and even 7-figure coaching business. I am, of course, your host, the Road Dog, with none other than the man, the myth, the legend himself, Karl Bryan. Shoots, welcome to the program.
Yo. Shoots, how are you, my friend? What's going on, Road Dog's world?
Always a flurry of activity. How's that?
There we go. Keeping it organized, my brother.
Yeah, everything is word of the day, copacetic. Everything is copacetic, my friend.
There we go. You're the richest people if you look at the richest people in the world, one thing that you will see consistently is highly organized. And yes, of course, there are examples, but if you look at the Bill Gates and the Ray Dalios and the Zuckerbergs and the, Musk, I got no idea if he's organized or not. I dare say he would be very organized given his the way that he operates. But what he does is he surrounds himself, you'll notice, with engineers and all that sort of thing. So there you go. Stay organized, peeps.
There you go. I did complete another half marathon last weekend, Shoots. I'm not sure if I told you that.
Well done, my brother.
Yeah. Some good lessons there. Some real good lessons.
Give me one.
Well, I was absolutely reflecting on it, right? And I'm like, okay, it's the whole, for me, when I was always doing my long runs, preparing for it, I just sort of did them whenever, right? I'd be like, yeah, I'll do them on the Sunday and then whatever. But race day, well, that was at 7:30. Well, I never ran that early. So to me, what really hit me was the person that you want to become, the race that you want to race, whatever it is, you got to start living that. So for me, going forward, if I'm doing another race, it starts at 7:30. Guess what I'm doing every Sunday morning at 7:30? I'm running that race.
I like it, Shade. I like it. Yep. Agreed with that.
So, but anyway,
would you agree with? I thought there was a feeling that you might say something like this. So, the days, everybody needs to go to the gym. Nobody's going to say, no, I don't need to go to the gym, right? No, that's fairly straightforward. But that if you go to the gym on the days you want to go to the gym, even the most avid, weightlifter, fitness person, is going to get there 2 days a week. The trick is it's the days you don't want to go or the days you really need to go. And what you will find that feel reflected, similar, parallel to what you just said. And then what ends up happening is, yes, you get physical gains, but the real magic, and ask anybody who goes to the gym every day. I would guess Road Dog. I don't know. We didn't talk about this on the pre-show, but you know what I mean? The mental game is significant, is greater than the physical game. Pretty straightforward. What do you think? You agree with that?
Yeah, I totally agree. The funny thing is, for me, I was sort of semi-sick for about a week and a half before the race. I didn't really run as much as I should have. And, but I always like to say, I'm just dumb enough that I'll be at the starting line. I'll be there. It's so funny how that works. For me, I am disciplined in that arena like nothing else. I wish I was that disciplined in other areas of my life, but I know if you sign me up for a race, I will do the training. That's one thing I am very, very detailed on, is just following that and executing it. And I will be at the start line no matter what. So
there you go. Standard, brother. That's a standard. Well done.
Yeah. And that's where I just need to learn to translate that into other areas of my life. But hey, listen, let's jump in here. But you know what? Actually, before we do, I haven't asked you about Bitcoin lately, because I know it's still a pretty popular topic for our listeners. So what's your current take on the old Bitcoin?
Ooh. Yeah, I've talked about it. Like we have talked about it many times. And just, I don't know, my opinion is largely, can't remember what we said and when we said it, but I can tell you my opinion is going to be largely the same. So this might be rather vanilla. Like I wrote about Bitcoin. I mean, you could look at it, right? Like I wrote about it. I don't know how long ago it was, but I'm going to say it roughly 10 years ago. I just say this, don't watch the price of Bitcoin. Watch the regulation, watch the adoption. The adoption, like who's adopting it. When the hedge funds start investing billions of dollars, you can assume that's a really, really good thing, and that's absolutely going on. Also, watch the utility of it. Okay, like can you actually buy things with it? Can you actually use it? Um, Maybe a better question is to say, what would Ray Dalio say about it? You don't know who Ray Dalio is. He's one of the most brilliant financial minds of our time. I follow, I follow him regularly. Most things that he puts out, I find a way to get an eyeball or an ear to it. What would Ray Dalio say? What would Ray Dalio think about it? Well, again, no doubt I'll miss a few things, but thinking about Ray Dalio, he's going to say money needs to have two things. One, it needs to have a medium of exchange. Okay, so you need to actually buy things with it. Two, it needs to be a storehold of wealth, right? And he will tell you storehold of wealth is of critical importance. Maybe you might ask, okay, what's storehold of wealth? So simply something that holds value over the long haul, right? So my daughter's got a piggy bank, right? What does that do? That keeps her money safe. And of course, she would need to take a hammer to it to get the money out. It's one of those, like really, really big. It's a big, fat, legit piggy bank. It's like a little piggy. Anyway, so she's going to have to break that sucker if she wants to open it up. And guess what she doesn't do? She doesn't open it up. She's thought about it. She's talked about it, never done it. So it's kind of keeping her money safe. Maybe more to the point, though, ideally, it doesn't lose value due to things like inflation, economic change, right? So maybe the double translation of that is it doesn't go to zero. And there was a time with Bitcoin where that was, you know what I mean? It was either going to go to the moon or go to zero, right? Well, again, don't look at the price of Bitcoin, look at regulation, look at adoption. And then, by the way, other storeholds of wealth, look, would be gold. It would be silver, real estate, stocks, bonds, maybe a high value collectible, art, sports cards, etc. You see those types of things moving and popular. Farmland for sure, treasury notes, maybe diamonds. I've put domains in there. If you don't think domain names are going to go to zero, then you do think that they're going to appreciate, they fall into it. But look, so Ray, channeling my inner Ray Dalio, decentralized is a strength, right? Well, the problem is with that, there is no secrecy whatsoever. And in many cases, do you really want everyone to know, where you're placing funds and how much? And maybe forget the retail investor and us. Like, what about the central bank? Again, regulation and the people that are adopting it. In some cases, I think privacy is a bit of a must, and maybe I'm wrong, by the way, but I do think that that's going to be, in some cases, privacy. Well, Ray Dalio believes privacy is going to be important. So, and also, I don't know if this is Ray Dalio, but certainly like a risk of the code being broken, which would make it ineffective. What would it do? It would erode trust, erode value. So think hackers, think AI disruption, AI hackers, outdated code. Like on blockchain, for example, which I do know a little bit about, you might think that because it's blockchain, it's public, it's decentralized, so nobody can mess with it. Well, according to a very close friend of mine, who, by the way, is a blockchain maestro, he's done an ICO, like an initial coin offering, and he knows blockchain inside out and then right side up. He says if somebody controls 51% of the computing power, they could rewrite the transaction history. And remember, we don't even know who Satoshi is, right? And again, I don't want to be the doomsdayer. I'm a fan of Bitcoin. I have been for a long time. Well on the podcast, well documented in my emails, well documented. And again, there'll be podcasts where I think Bitcoin was like 20 grand and you had asked me, and where's it going? I said, I think it'll go to $100,000 comfortably. Guess where we're at above that. And by the way, why did I say that? The direction of regulation, the direction and, the people adopting it, people adoption, right? So it had nothing to do with the price going up, right? Again, that's me channeling my inner Warren Buffett. That's what he says. The worst reason to buy a stock is because it's going up. What do most people do? They buy stocks because they're going up. Anyway, so maybe shades that. Look, that's my take. It's maybe a little bit vanilla, maybe something new. But just think asset allocation, because really, if you're Bitcoin is ultimately investing. So think if you do invest, and you should invest, in my opinion, you have an investment portfolio. Think of 10% of it as a frame. If you want to go bearish, maybe do 20%, but I would be cautious going above that. I also think Solana is a good. You might be able to have some wins in Solana, but shits, that's my look. That's my thoughts on Bitcoin, shoots. And I do think that it's important, though, as business coaches, you've got business owners and are going to have questions. Do you need to be an expert in Bitcoin? Do you need to be an expert in blockchain? My opinion is no. But what do you need to do? I believe that you need to understand, what it is, how it works, where it could go, why. I don't know, some of the things that I'm talking about. And by the way, some of the downside. Like I said, at the end of the day, there's no guarantees that it's going to the moon, but I would say that regulation and adoption says that it's going to continue to go up steadily over the long haul. So shoots, that's my answer on Bitcoin.
There you go. Love it. Good framework there, folks. Speaking of frameworks, we talk a lot about market dominating position, which obviously is a big part of your operating system and your software. Can you give us a framework and give me some examples that coaches can take away on that side of things?
Yeah. Okay. And that's a good question. If you get this right, it is absolutely a needle mover for your client. I would dare say a lot of the best business coaches, this would be one of their quote unquote superpowers. So a market dominating position. So a market dominating position is a unique selling proposition. But the way we teach it and the way we train on it is a little bit different, where unique is standing out, but then market dominating is you solving the biggest problem for the ideal client, right? So a templated example I would give you is a daycare. Line up 100 daycares and ask them what's the major hot button of their ideal client. They will say location. They will say price. Why? Because they get 10 phone calls a day. And what did 10 people ask them? Where are you and how much? But 5-minute survey of their ideal client, who is mom, by the way. It's not dad, does not make this decision. Well and truly, on average, it is mom's decision. Mom's hot button is, price and location matter, but the real hot button for her is accountability and missing her kids, right? So, because she's off at work, she wants to know that her kids are going to be looked after. So if you owned a daycare, you could create an accelerated learning center. So I had a client back in the day sold us daycares for $10 million, right? I'm an accelerated learning center, obviously very successful. But that is a unique selling proposition. Unless if mom wakes up in the morning and says, I need for my kid to go into grade 1 with the grade 2 reading, writing, and arithmetic ability, then that's a market dominating position, because that's her hot button. But I don't think that mom wakes up and thinks that, although in some areas and in some cultures that might not be the case. But if you're in North America, I don't say that's it. So it's going to be accountability. Well, what could you do to satisfy her there? And what about a web watch, where you take cameras in the main room, and you shine them down, and then mom is able to watch you, mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and auntie and uncle can watch the kids playing, log in on the internet any day they want and watch the kids playing with one another, etc. And then notwithstanding, mom is like missing her kids wildly, and it's a Thursday afternoon and she's at work or she's driving down the road. She can whip open her iPad, pull over on the side of the road, log into the web watch, and basically be able to see her 2 kids playing together and socializing and hanging out with other kids and playing blocks, etc. So that would be an example of a market dominating position. Okay, so frame unique is you standing out, which is important. There's always, I've said many a times, there's always more money in being unique than there is in being better. And of course, you should concentrate on being better, but you want to be, the only. You want to work working towards that. Let's be realistic in some cases. But a market dominating position solves the biggest problem for the ideal client, right? And by the way, don't expect to get it right in the first go. Like I built a multi-million-dollar marketing company on the back of 4 words that I trademarked. This is in the mid 2000s. What were those 4 words? No results, no fee. Right. And by the way, I started that market dominating position started as like 2 paragraphs, and it got a little bit shorter, a little bit shorter, a little bit shorter, a little bit shorter, until lo and behold, I got it tightened down to 4 words. That is not where I started. Or if you had a home services business, right? On time, on budget. Or you guys probably see like a realtor. If I don't sell your house, in X amount of times, I'll buy it, right? Or you could have a business broker that could play on that. If I don't sell your business, I'll buy it, right? You create rules around that. But by the way, they're buying the house for far less than market value in that instance. And of course, if you were to buy the business, you'd be buying it for more, far off of market, or off of market value, or presume you would, right? Maybe I used to do presentations that when I originally got my coaching business and whatnot. I used to run regular seminars, regular boot camps. What I used to say is, I guarantee to solve any marketing problem on the spot. It brought an audience every single time. And yes, I pooped my pants a little, especially when I first got it going. But I'll also tell you that the questions were always in 4 areas: staff, system, sales, marketing. Ridiculously predictable. And sometimes it was one outside the box, but never had a real issue. And again, if you're, pretty, if you're a good, solid business coach, business consultant, you've done your homework, you've done the training, and you understand the foundation of business, I would dare say that you too would be able to do that. And I also promoted, I had another promotion where it was, give me 2 hours of your time and I guarantee to make you more money. Right. And again, my seminar was 2 hours. Right. And I always did it at a high end venue. Like I did it at the Penthouse. I would do it at the golf course. I would do it at the higher end venue. Don't do it at Humpty Dumpty's. Right. Spend a little bit more and get a good venue, in my opinion. Or maybe you start at Humpty Dumpty's and move your way up. But I would start, because remember, they associate you with the brand of the place that you're going. I don't think you say the Humpty Dumpty of business coach, right? But remember, give me 2 hours of your time and I guarantee to make you more money. One of the things that I know that people were really worried about was going to another pitch fest and not getting real value, right? So, and by the way, this was piggybacked off the back of Tony Robbins, where what did he used to do? He used to go on the radio challenging psychiatrists, and he would say, look, come to my seminar with your most troubled client, and I will solve any phobia on the spot, right? So somebody's got a fear of snakes, a fear of spiders, a fear of heights, crowded places, needles. Someone was suicidal, by the way. He said, bring them. And I will fix them live in my event right there. And by the way, he did it, and apparently it worked out pretty darn well, because we know where Tony Robbins got. But anyway, so that's the kind of the market dominating position, the biggest problem for the ideal client. That's kind of the foundation. So what do you think? That help?
Well, okay, so I know this is your jam, so I'm not going to let you off the hook that easily. Let's go. Hit us. Give us more business examples.
Go. Okay. So let's go to some examples that you would have heard of, right? So if I'm teaching it, remember, there's things you know, things you don't know, and things you don't know. You need to connect things with that people know with what they don't know, because if you teach them something they don't know and connect it to something they don't know, you're not going to have a very trained individual, right? So, okay, so let's use Domino's Pizza. I bet as I say it, you already know what it is, right? But piping hot pizza in 30 minutes or less, or it's free, right? Yeah, they did end up going in a different direction, but guess what? It worked pretty darn well. And that is what would, put them on the map. And by the way, they originally went to university students, and these guys may or may not have been smoking some funny stuff. So what did they want? They wanted their pizzas. They wanted it now. So that was a big hot. They didn't want it in an hour and a half. They didn't want it in an hour. They don't have 3 kids that they need to feed, right? They got some homework to do. They got some buddies over. They're feeling good. They want their damn pizza and they want it now. That X, when it absolutely positively has to be there the next day, again, biggest problem for their ideal client, right? McDonald's launched fast food in 30 seconds instead of 30 minutes. Imagine you had, a 1 hour lunch break. Well, where are you going to go to get lunch? just by nature, even 50 years ago, fast food, you knew that wasn't cucumber and kale, right? But at the end of the day, you just want to get in, you want to get out, and you want to have some time to yourself on your lunch break, right? So fast food. And then, of course, they launched the drive-through. They didn't really invent the drive-through, but the drive-through as we know it today would not be what it is if it was not for McDonald's. Again, mom, 3 kids, very busy, goes through the drive-through, grabs a bag of food, puts it in the back seat. Guess what? The kids have eaten by the time she gets home. And they say, you deserve a break today, right? So again, solves the biggest problem for the ideal client. So many. Tiffany is a good one. And now what is it? Tiffany, like the diamonds and whatnot. I think it's something like the right one, the correct one. The right one is worth waiting for. I think that's what it is. Again, think do you want to get your fiance? Yeah, I mean, you want to get her the ring, the diamond, the shape, the whatever that she's been waiting for. So the right one is worth waiting for. Head and Shoulders is a beauty, clinically proven to reduce dandruff. Again, biggest problem, ideal client. If you had dandruff and you had little white flakes on your, on your suit, etc., that would be painful. That would be a hot button. Well, clinically proven to reduce dandruff is what they said. Again, Head and Shoulders work pretty well. Shoots, I'm trying to think some small, so look, poor people buy stuff and rich people buy time. Affluent people buy time. So maybe what we should do, so thinking about if I were going to be helping a client, I would probably be thinking about trying to get them some affluent clients. So think small business. Let's go locksmith. He's in 15 minutes of us arriving, or it's free, right? A pet wash, even a car wash, I think would be the same, but we could call it wash and go, 3 words, powerful, wash and go in under 30 minutes. Tire repair, same thing. Your flat's going to be fixed in 20 minutes or it's going to be free. Dry cleaners have done this for years. But again, some promote it, some don't. The ones that do, I can tell you're going to do one, better than the ones that don't generally, but same day shirt press, or it's on us, or, same day and, it's half off, or maybe a bakery, fresh loaf. What do we want? We want fresh bread, when otherwise we wouldn't be going to the bakery. We would just go to the grocery store, right? Well, what's the problem with that? By the time we get it, it's not so fresh. So what about, a fresh loaf of bread? I don't know, every got to be realistic, every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, or half off, right? So yeah, it might not be perfectly fresh, but you're going to get it half off, or you're going to wait the 10 minutes, wait the 15 minutes, and get yourself nice fresh sourdough bread. Makes me hungry, by the way. I love sourdough bread, man. Love it. And a coffee shop custom brew in 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I don't know. How busy are they? How much room do they have? How many staff can they hire? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you probably want a custom brew. The problem, it takes so damn long. So what do? You go to Starbucks. Do you want to support Starbucks? There's a good chance you don't. Custom brew in 5 minutes. I think that's going to be a market dominating position for a coffee shop. Home clean. So I don't know. So I hope that's help. Home cleaning, spotless rooms in less than 2 hours, right? What you'd have to do is place a realistic number, like 5 rooms, the average house, 5 rooms, depending upon what area you're in. You're in an affluent area with bigger homes, or you're in a, average area with smaller houses, et cetera, right? Apartments, all that's going to change. But let's say that 5 rooms in the average house. So you say, look, how long does it take you to do 5 rooms and get them spotless? You tell me 2 hours. Well, guess what? Spotless rooms in less than 2 hours. And why is that market dominating? Because there's nothing worse than having the cleaner in the house and she's there for forever. He's there for forever, right? There's multiple people running around to do. Trustworthiness might actually fall into that as well. Like business coach. So the promise of our software, when I originally built it again 12 years ago, I can find any business owner $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. Again, do you think that what is the business owner looking for? They're looking for more revenue. They're really looking for more profit, but they don't think in those terms. So again, find you $100,000 in 45 minutes. Very importantly, it doesn't work nearly as well without the second half, without you spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. So make sure, again, with all of these, don't promise something you can't deliver on. And okay, here's the thing though, right? They're likely already doing this stuff, like cleaning the house in less than 2 hours, working to get that custom coffee done in less than 5 minutes. Guess what they don't do? They don't promote it. Then they don't put systems in place and they don't train their staff. They don't put it out there. So they're effectively doing these things, but then not getting the benefit of the promotion. Right. And then, by the way, and that's a silly thing to do, by the way, but so then you go, yeah, but what about if they're not able to get the house done in 2 hours? What if they're not able to deliver that coffee in less than 3 minutes? I can tell you this with ridiculous predictability. People are less hard on you, not harder on you when you make bold claims and as long as you're working hard to fulfill them. If you're a dog's breakfast, sorry, this is a bad idea. Don't do it. And don't get your client to do it, right? But if you're working hard and they can see that, and look, you took an extra 10 minutes, you took an extra couple minutes, they are going to be less hard on you, not harder on you generally. But be careful to make promises that you can't fulfill on. So make sure that at least 80% of the time you're fulfilling, and the 20% I think you're going to find, you'll be all good. But think this is the way I used to frame it up. Like, let's say you sign up, 10 people come in, or 10 people buy that would not otherwise come in or buy, right? So you get 10 clients. And then let's say you mess up or they screw you over or however you look at it, right? But let's say 2 times you got to do the loaf of bread for half price, or you got to do the whatever for free, right? Well, if it brought in 10 clients you wouldn't otherwise get, and then you got screwed over or you dropped the ball twice, aren't you plus 8? Right? The math will math in that instance. So anyway, so there you go, Shoots. That's my answer, but I think that's an important frame, right? Because what do they do, Shoots? It's like, you do a Facebook post, you do the YouTube post, you get 10 comments, and then 8 are positive, and then 2 people have a shot at you, on your ad or whatever. What do people do? They can't help but think about the 2 and disregard the 8. What do you got to do? You got to go to the 8, not the 2. The price of success is hate. Okay, get over it, deal with it, keep moving, help your client do same. Anywho, the math will math, Shoots. But I don't know. How'd I do? Give you a good example.
I love it. Some really, really good examples there. The thing that I love is odds are good. They're already doing it. And it's probably the same for you and your business. You're already doing it. You're just not highlighting the right thing.
It's not on their website. It's not on the business card. It's not on the ad. It's not on the brochure. It's not on the, the pamphlet. It's not on the T-shirt. It's not in the script over the phone. And that's what you do, right? Anyway, so there you go, bud. Hopefully that helps.
Absolutely. Hey, you know what? While we're on it, because another important part is communication. And we get a lot of questions and comments around communication. Can you shed some wisdom around communication?
Quality. I think this is Tony Robbins, but the quality of your life is the quality of your communication. I don't know if that's a direct, but it's fundamentally what he says. I think if you're thinking about communication, break it down to 3. You've got communication with yourself, you've got communication with others, and you know what the third one is? I would put communication with technology. Right? That is communication with your phone. That's communication with your computer. Certainly Google, AI, prompt engineering would fall into that. And I think as AI takes over, and we've obviously talked about that, a number of times over the last X amount of podcasts, as AI takes over, that's only going to become more and more important. I wouldn't have put, communication with technology without going down the rabbit hole that I've gone over the last X amount of time. So, but let me tell you this also, and you would have heard this from me, but what you say to yourself about yourself when you're by yourself matters. So level up your communication and watch what happens. And by the way, don't just do it in, just to yourself, but do it with others, and, do it with tech. Like, you got words like thing and try and maybe and should. I don't know. I think you're going to find like those are non-descriptive, non-meaningful words that could keep you stuck, shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? So, and I would assume your goal is to not be stuck. Your client's goal is to not be stuck. And by the way, happens to the best of us, certainly happened to me. Many, it's happened before. It's going to, happen again. You'll go through your periods, but, managing that, shoulda, coulda, woulda, talking in big circles and big gains, communicating with people thinking at a higher level, communicating with people so that they start thinking at a higher level. I'd also say this, Shoots, like, and this would be Tony Robbins 101, but what's the story that you keep telling yourself? Like, I'm overweight, I'm lazy, I'm late, I'm undisciplined, I'm too old, I'm too young, I don't have enough money, I don't have the degree, the world's going to hell, the economy sucks, everybody's broke, right? Like, the greatest gift, I've said this lots, right? The greatest gift that you can give your child is expectation. Well, unconditional love, I think, would trump that. But like, at the end of the day, expectation is very, very powerful. So improve your communication and your personal expectations for yourself. And I think that you kind of automatically level up, right? So question, do you expect greatness from your clients? There's a good chance you don't. And that's a little bit of a problem. The same way you got to have expectation for your kids, or that's a gift that you give them. You can have expectations for your clients, not to mention yourself. Like, do you expect the best for yourself? Or do you fall into the category of, kind of expecting the worst? What the question, okay, you go, I'm not sure. What's the story you keep repeating to yourself? And you may or may not know the answer to that, but I assure you there is a story you keep saying, and you need to manage that. So, and okay, I'm going to channel my inner Tony Robbins, right? Love Tony Robbins, hate Tony Robbins, completely irrelevant. The guy's done very, very well in the coaching world. What does he say? Wake up every day and make a list of things that you're grateful for. Legitimately go to gratitude, right? Not just the big stuff like the money and the business and the clients, maybe houses and cars, but the little stuff, the air that you breathe, hot water in the shower, the mountains, the health, your family's health, the internet that you're probably listening this on, the roads that you drive on and the road that you might be driving on right now, the airplanes that can take you around the world in literally hours nowadays that, years ago was just completely impossible. When you really think about it, people talk about, the world being in a really tough place, and we've got this issue, that issue, government's doing this, the economy's doing that. Very easy to be grateful when you look around a minute. And that the truth is, the world we live in, if you compare it back to just, say, 2 decades ago, which frankly was not that long ago, that'd be 2005 as we speak, it might be hard to feel that way given the state of the world, but the world's pretty, things are pretty incredible. Actually, okay, Sheets, wait, I just thought of something. So this might be good. So Mr. Beast implemented this thing, and I don't know what he called it, right? But let's call it levels of communication, or higher form of communication rule, right? So he was frustrated with his staff who wouldn't pick up the phone or call a meeting when his clients had like a legit problem, right? What would they do? They would text or email on what we're going to categorize here as a major issue, right? So the more difficult the problem, the higher form of communication that is needed, right? So I think that he had like ranking. So let's just go email and text, put them in the same basket, and we'll call that low. And then you've got a telephone call, let's call that medium. And then we'll go in person, and then that's going to be high, right? What happens when I send you an email? It's easy to mess up and miss critical pieces of information, or maybe, you can't tell if I'm serious. You can't tell if I'm joking around. You can't tell if the person's happy, sad, concerned, or, hair's on fire, right? So why? It's a low level of communication, right? So you need more copy for the copy machine. Okay, send an email, send a text. The launch is messed up, and we're 2 days out from pressing send, and we spent a lot of money to promote this thing, and we've got high expectations, what do you got to do? You got to pick up the damn phone, or better yet, get face-to-face with your team. All right, so your client has a your client has a legitimate issue, or maybe they want to cancel. I see this all the time. Okay, and I don't want to be harsh here, but you got weak coaches and then strong coaches. A weak coach, a lot of the time, what do? They send a text, they send an email. Why? They don't feel deserving of the client. They don't feel deserving of the $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 retainer. That's the truth. Sort of like little bits like self-sabotage, right? So what do? They text or they email the client who's thinking about canceling. Right? What do you got to do? Pick up the phone, jump in the car, and maybe it's jump in the airplane, depending upon what these numbers look like, right? So the translation, this is according to Mr. Beast, he's a young guy, but look, he's wildly, wildly successful to the tunes of, hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay, so translation, you don't try to solve big problems, weak levels of communication. I thought that was just gold. And again, no doubt it's significantly deeper and more complex than what I'm describing, but just think, you got email and text and that's low, you got a telephone call and that's medium, and then you got in person and that's high. Don't solve a big problem with low levels of communication. This also shapes like why I said post-COVID, I knew that virtual offices would never work, right? And I, wrote it out in an email. We talked about it on the podcast. Why? Like a football team can't practice on Zoom. They need to be in person, training, the new plays, hitting the gym together, experiencing the dynamic of being shoulder to shoulder with the guys that they're going to go to battle with on Sunday, right? Same thing happens in an office around the water cooler, right? And of course, there's nuances to this, and I own a virtual company, by the way. And keep in mind, I've had a virtual company for 17 years. I have learned on the fly, and we have built systems and scoreboards to manage what we're doing. And quite frankly, the engineering firm that has always had brick and mortar, face-to-face, tangible office, there's a pretty good chance they just don't have those skills. And there's certain types of people that will be able to handle that type of job and other people who will not, right? Like, and I don't want to get in introverts, extroverts. No doubt there's some nuances there and you could fill in some blanks, but the engineering firm is going to have a hell of a time building a super big virtual company. Why? They're hiring engineers, and engineers don't do well virtually. Maybe just, that was a bit, but in closing, communication. Look, the words of Tony Robbins, the quality of your life is the quality of your communication. And I think you should be thinking about 3 types of communication you have. You got communication with you got communication with others, and I don't know that this is new by any stretch of the imagination, but I can tell you that AI is going to bring this. Like, Zuckerberg, I was on Facebook today and Zuckerberg's got his glasses on and he's showing, the messages pop up and like, you just put your finger out in front of you. You want to turn up the music. You just turn your hand like as though you're turning a volume down. And that, the volume increases on your damn music that's coming through your sunglasses. Like, okay, what am I saying? Communication with technology. I wouldn't have said that previously, but I think that is something coming thick and fast for everybody. So I think it's important. Make sure that you're communicating with your technology in a high way. Just maybe in closing, sorry, I'm rambling, I'm rabbit holing this, but people are communicating with ChatGPT and they're teaching it like a virtual assistant. And you want to think about it as, at a minimum, a manager, but really like a vice president of your company, maybe a partner in your company. But think of it as you strategizing with a vice president, not with a VA. I think that might help. And that would be an example of communicating with technology at a higher level. What do you think, Shoots? How'd I do?
You're going down a rabbit hole, but hey, let's button this up. I'm not going to let you get away without the moment of Zen.
Go, Zen Shoots. There we go. The moment is Zen. Okay. Well, this morning, probably the opposite of Zen, which I tend to do, but the stock market, 10 companies represent roughly 50% of its value. It is looking a lot like the 2000 .com bust, so I just wonder, is an AI bust something that we're going to experience? And remember, as you go, oh, there's no way. Amazon.com at one stage lost 90% of its value, right? So again, if it was trading at $100, it went down to 10, right? So the stock literally fell off a cliff. Of course, it came back, and it came back big time, but how many Amazon.coms were there that didn't come back? And the answer is a whole lot. So I don't know. AI is coming. It's going to be disruptive, but .com was also coming and also did come and was disruptive. More, money poured in like crazy, but it took, let's just, as a frame, it took 10 years longer than the investors wanted to and planned, right? So, by the way, so then you go, okay, well, give me a solution. Like, oh my gosh, right? You say, I got to invest. And if, that you got to think, if you're investing, you got to think dollar cost average, right? You buy poorly when the stock market is high, and you buy well when it is low. So if you take $1,000 a week or $1,000 a month or $250 a week, whatever your number, or $10,000 a month or $100,000 a month, whatever your number is, what you do is you buy the exact same amount every week, every month, every quarter. What's going to happen? It's going to average out. So you might, if what I'm describing happens and I've got no idea, and Ray Dalio will let you know that he doesn't know either. But what will happen is that it ends up averaging out, right? So you buy bad today, but you end up buying really well if something like that happened, right? So I don't know, Shades. I don't know. I do think that is a little bit Zen-like, because again, at the end of the day, we've got business coaches, we've got business. We're dealing with business owners. What are they trying to do? Why do they start a business? They're trying to get free by virtue of their businesses, and building enterprise value and cash flow, building up cash flow, etc. So you can get lucky and make it. You can't get lucky and keep it, as I always say. Look, 2 things to avoid, Shoots. Little different track is like, one is worrying about what other people think, and then 2 with like assuming that they're actually thinking about you, right? Because I'll just tell you, they're not thinking about you, right? Just like hate on nobody, wait on nobody. How's that sound? And in fact, you know what? This reminds me, Shoots. Hang on, I got to open up my phone here because I wrote something earlier and I want to read it. Okay, so this is Naval Ravikant. This a little bit longer than I planned, but anyway, so this I thought this was really, really good, right? So suffering is a moment of clarity when you can no longer deny the truth of a situation and are forced into uncomfortable change. I'm lucky that I didn't get everything I wanted in my life, or I'd be happy with my first good job, my college sweetheart, my college town. Being poor when young led me to making money when old. Losing faith in my bosses and elders made me independent and an adult. Almost getting into the wrong marriage helped me recognize and enter the right one. Falling sick made me focus on my health. It goes on and on. Inside suffering is the seed of change. And again, that's Naval Ravikant. So my takeaway here, and what I wrote to myself, is that, as business, do you know what I mean? You go through good times and you go through bad times. What's most important is that you're learning, you're progressing, you're getting a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better every day. Remember, 1% per day for 365 days, and you get a 37x, right? So consistency and discipline. So my takeaway is difficulty creates capability. And I said, KB, I went, Karl, become capable, right? Difficulty creates capability. As this, be comfortable, Karl, with becoming capable. And you go, well, I would like to think that I am capable, but guess what? I'm nowhere near as capable as I can be. And again, if I improve 1% every single day, the next 375 days, that sounds a lot like I'm going to be 37 times as capable in 365 days. And that sounds like to me, I'd be more capable. My wife might chime in here and say we'd certainly like him to be significantly more capable. Anyway, so remember, no one waits in line for a flat roller coaster, which would also fall into that. So anyway, shoots. That's my answer, but how'd I do? That's my Zen thought.
Long quote, great quote. How about that? That was awesome. Like, just love that. Love that. All right, well, let's button this up, my friend. What's can we do one thing? Can you only find one thing from this episode, or what? Let's give it a go.
You know what? Look, the easy one here. Look, market dominating positions solve the biggest problem for the ideal client, and then say it. And then say it loud, say it boldly, say it consistently. Back of the business card, the top of the website. It's the pitch over the phone. It's the first thing you say when your client walks in the office. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Just repeatedly, on your advertising, etc., on your Facebook feed, etc. So anyway, so just market dominating position, biggest problem for the ideal client. Get really, really good at that. It's absolutely a needle mover for your clients. And I gave you some examples, but they are literally, you just go to like Amazon, it's the everything store, right? He asked himself the question, what's never going to change? Vast selection, low prices, fast delivery. He went all in on those three things. Biggest problem for his ideal client. Well, what do? He went to three biggest problems for his ideal clients, and Amazon.com, apparently it's working out pretty well. So I would encourage everybody to go down that rabbit hole and just train yourself. Remember, don't expect to get it in one. Don't expect to be amazing at it. I've been doing that for years and years and years and years and years. And it's, again, a bit of a pet, pet thing for me. Like, you know what I mean? I love it. That's what I like talking about. Very, very powerful. So anyway, Shoots, that's my answer. And by the way, there you go. Where the hell are we going to get it from? You just go to their ideal clients and ask them a few questions. But remember, don't ask them the surface level question, because they're going to say price and they're going to say location. For like the example of the daycare, that the first thing out of their mouth is very seldom going to be the legitimate hot button. You got to go a little bit deeper. So
there you go.
So that's that. What's that?
There you go, folks. Peel back the layers of that onion and get to the real meaning and the real reason, right?
There you go, Shoots.
Yes. There it is. There it is. All right, folks. Well, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. I hope you found it as valuable as I did. And if you're not on the inside and getting access to the pre-show, or you aren't getting Karl's daily emails, or just want more information on how to build, grow, and scale your coaching business, visit focus.com and subscribe today. Just do yourself that favor. Go there now. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please like and subscribe, and also share with a fellow coach or someone that's maybe looking at becoming a business coach, as we as ourselves are trying to make our impact on as many coaches as possible. And while you're at it, feel free to leave us a review. And just as Karl said, we'll read the 8 and ignore the 2. But anyways, on that note, that is it for another week. And remember, folks, progress equals happiness. We'll see you in the next episode. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.